Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on MisplacedStraws.com, where music comes to life. And you may know my next guest from his time in Yes, from playing and touring with legends like Meatloaf, Debbie Harry, and many others. Perhaps you know him from his Prague all-star band, The Sea Within, or maybe you're just discovering him on the incredible new record by Kansas called The Absence of Presence. Either way, Tom Brislin has done it all, and he's here now to talk about this great new Kansas record. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much. How you doing?
Doing great. Now, a little background before we get too deep into the record. When we last caught up, you had just put out the self-titled record From the Sea Within, and you did a few festival dates. And then not too long after that, you announced you were joining Kansas. How did that opportunity first come about?
The first performance with The Sea Within was in Germany in summer of 2018 at the night of the Prague Festival. Mm-hmm. And it was an opportunity for me to get reacquainted with the head of our label, Thomas Weber from Inside Out Records. Mm-hmm. I think he first saw me play with Yes in Germany in 2001. And I had appeared on a few Inside Out titles over the years, but this was really a great way to actually have a face-to-face. And that performance was really special. As it often goes with these festivals, you're sort of up against some logistical things that make it a challenge to put a show on, like not much of a sound check or rental gear, you name it. So there's always a little bit of extra fire under you when you're doing a festival. But I thought that we had a really good performance, and it was really special to bring that music to life for the first time. And I guess the impression I made on Thomas held with him, because when Kansas had the need for a keyboard player, he recommended it to them because they are our label mates on Inside Out. And so just a few months later, I got the call from Phil Ehart asking me to join the band.
And at that time, were they still touring for Prelude Implicit, or had it moved on to the Leftover tour?
Even past both of those, they had begun and were in progress of the Point of No Return anniversary tour.
Okay. And now, as you were doing that, I mean, Kerry Livgren, such an amazing songwriter. What did you learn about kind of the band and the songs when you were playing them night after night on that tour?
Considering that my first task with Kansas was to play the Point of No Return album in its entirety, it was a great education. You get to know exactly what Kansas is about, what the vibe is, what the writing is about, what the lyrical feeling is, and that sort of texture was involved. So for me, it was like the best education I could possibly have in terms of becoming a member of Kansas.
And then when it finally became time to record a new record after doing that tour, you and Zach Ribsey, did you guys sort of convince Phil, Rich, and Billy to kind of take that creative burden on, or was it just kind of a natural passage?
It was a bit different because, as you may know, Zach was brought into the band to produce and write for the Prelude Implicit, and they loved what he was doing so much then that they invited him to join the band. And when it came time for me to come on board, I asked Phil in that first conversation if I would be invited to the songwriting festivities as well. And he was very encouraging. He said, yeah, show us what you got. And I spoke to Zach, who had already been writing and making demos for some of the songs that would later be on the new album. And I said, what are the opportunities here? And he said, well, there's still a few slots left for music, and every song needs lyrics. And our singer Ronnie Platt writes some, and I'm a lyricist as well. So I got to work on that front simultaneously with learning the Kansas material for the show, because we were making and submitting demos, and in my case, writing music and lyrics during the first part of 2019 when I was a new member of the band, still trying to get my sea legs on stage with the group. So it was a big juggling act for me.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot about Phil, too, to have enough faith in the people that were brought into the band to let the new people have that writing. You know, too many times we see bands really try to stick to the way it was always done, and, you know, the new members don't get as much of a say. So I think they get a lot of credit, too, for letting you and Zach really explore and know that after this touring cycle, you knew what it took to make a Kansas song. So even though these songs sound really new and fresh, you never lose sight of what a Kansas song is as you listen to the record.
It helped that I had that point of no return music swimming in my head while I was doing this. And it was also important for me to not try to retread, rehash, or try to emulate earlier Kansas music. I thought that would be a trap, and that would lead to a dead end. I think that I just have been writing music for so long, it's just going to come out like me. But certainly it was informed by Kansas identity. And it also was a good leading way, or sorry, I should say, it led me to write the lyrics in a way that were appropriate for the vibe and the language of Kansas.
And lyrically, it's a deep record. It's a heavy record when you really start digging into the songs. Were these ideas that you already had floating around in your head and you kind of said, well, it makes a lot of sense to put these to Kansas, or was it lyrics that you developed during this writing process?
All of the lyrics were developed during this process on my end. And some of the songs, like the title track and Throwing Mountains and Animals on the Roof, those were titles that Phil threw out to us and said, here's what they mean to me, but I really want you to see what you can do with this title. And that's a great exercise for a writer, because sometimes when you have a blank canvas, you don't know where to begin. But Phil would tell me about the absence of presence and what it meant to him. Now, I didn't have to write exactly that, but I was informed by it and influenced by it. And I was able to put my own feelings and ambiguity into it as well.
Well, and it's such a striking phrase, and I think it works perfect as a title to a record because it draws you in. So it's interesting to hear somebody kind of give you that phrase and then what you built around it. That's an interesting way of working.
Yeah, I have been asked about the meaning of it in previous interviews, including these short documentary-style videos that we have to talk about the different songs of the album. And I almost feel bad for explaining too much, because I don't want to deprive the listener of drawing their own pictures in their mind.
Exactly. I think everyone that hears it thinks something different, and that's what makes it work.
Yeah, and it's all intentional, too, that you could have a light bulb go off in your head and say, oh, wait, is it about this? And then you draw the lines, you connect the dots, and you're like, wait a second, is that? And that's one of the fun aspects of songwriting and listening to songs with lyrics for me.
And when it comes to the songs themselves, Ronnie Platt on vocals and David Ragsdale on violin shine on this record. And, you know, the legacies of Steve Walsh and Robbie Steinhardt will always define the band Kansas. But did you get a feeling on tour from the fan reaction as well as the reaction to the record now that these two guys are really solidifying their spots in this band?
Absolutely. And in the case of David, he has decades of experience as a member of Kansas. So I think he is very well entrenched and very big part of what this band is and has been. So, and as far as Ronnie goes, he has won people over everywhere. And I just feel like for any people who have made comments doubting what Kansas is this real Kansas, et cetera, quote unquote. Just come to a show and then draw your own conclusions, because I feel like anybody who's been to a show has been entertained and they feel what Kansas music brings to them. And Ronnie's such an electric front man and a great performer, and he has respect for Kansas history. And I feel for him sometimes because he's up against the emotional the emotions of the fan base who have become attached to the band that they love, and a lot of people don't want to let go of that feeling. So sometimes it's hard to accept a new person in that position. But I think when you hear that we are respectful and enthusiastic of Kansas music, and we want to grab the torch and hold it up and keep carrying it, I think that shows the love of this band. So I think that he's really done a great job, and Rags is just awesome. I mean, he's always pushing his own limitations on violin, and he never rests on his laurels, and he's just on fire.
Yeah, I mean, the two of them, as much as the songs are fresh and new and really more in a progressive vein, I think the two of them are really what steers it back to a Kansas song every time. The whole band does a great job on it. And you even have a vocal on the record on the song The River Sang that ends the album. How did that come about?
I was singing on all of the demos that I submitted. And I've sung lead for my own band, Spiraling, for many years, and also on my solo work. I didn't expect it, but I do realize that, well, that's consistent with the tradition of this band. Going back to the first album, you have songs that Robbie sings, and up until all the way to the Prelude Implicit, you have songs that Billy Greer sings. So it's really part of the package that you get a little variety on the album. But for me, I was just submitting the songs and just trying to give the guys as clear of a picture of what the song was when I made my demos. So I would sing, and I'd even put the harmonies in. I would try to make as flavorful of a demo recording as I could. And the two songs that I wrote music and lyrics for, Memories Down the Line and the song The River Sang, those were demos that I had a lead vocal on, but I never necessarily said, I must sing this.
Right.
It was more of, Phil came back to me and said, this seems like one that would be good for you to sing. And I just said, okay, let's go for it. And Billy sings the harmony in it, so we get all three Kansas lead vocalists on the album, even, despite the fact that we're singing harmonies on the whole thing.
It's a great song, great way to end the record too. And now, looking through the band's catalog, Kansas is one of those bands where there's no way you could ever play every song live in a set. You'd be there all night. Are there songs that maybe the band hasn't touched on for a while that you would like to see added into the set?
Well, I think that once Ronnie joined, it was no secret that there was a lot of music from the catalog that the band could tackle again. That for whatever reasons it was off the table in years past. So they've been having a lot of fun bringing back Left Overture and then bringing back The Point of No Return. And in my first few months of concerts with the band, we were also playing tracks from the Power album, and it was a real variety in the catalog. For me, I love the two classic albums so much, The Point of No Return and Left Overture, and we did perform both of them in New York at the end of 2019, our last show of the year. And between that and all the new stuff that we got coming out, I'm really mainly thinking and imagining in my head, what would this new music sound like live? Because remember, we haven't played it in concert yet.
Right. And, as somebody who's a fan of all eras of the band, the two I'd throw in there, Taking in the View from Power and Counting on Love from In the Spirit of Things. I think they would fit in perfect with this lineup of the band. So it's, as a fan, I'm very excited to see you guys get back on the road with everything.
Well, we did have Taking in the View in the set last year for some of the shows. Mm-hmm. Indeed.
It's such a great song.
It is.
And now the release date of the record was pushed back a little bit due to some manufacturing delays. But did the band ever discuss kind of holding it back until the world gets a little more normal and you can promote it with a proper tour?
I never heard that being discussed. In fact, I asked. I said, because I saw the writing on the wall. I saw all these major acts holding back. And I asked Phil if that was something that was being considered for this, and he said nope, because I think the position that Kansas is in right now is an agile one. And yes, the stars would have been aligned perfectly had we been out on the road with Foreigner and Europe like we were supposed to be, having the Absence of Presence at the merchandise table and in the air every night would have been just so amazing, and we were all just crushed that it wasn't to be. But I think it was a great move to release the album anyway when we did, because we have this ability to still connect with our audience even if we're not on the road. And not all of the, quote, legacy bands have that luxury of having new material. And partially because of all the progressive aspects of our music, we find ourselves in a position where we have an audience that is hungry for new material. And a lot of people are bummed that they can't come see Kansas this summer, but at least we can bring new music into their lives and reach out to them in that way and connect with them in that way. So I'm grateful that we were able to put it out.
And I think for a band like Kansas, too, a lot of your audience, when they go see you live, wants to hear the hits. You always get that group of people in an audience that, doesn't want the new stuff. So I think putting the record out now gives people a chance to hear the new stuff and digest it, so that when the tour finally does start, they're ready to hear it because they've been living with it for a little while. So I think it may actually be an advantage putting the record out now and then touring.
That's a great point. Yeah. And I think also, since there's all this chatter now, among the fan groups about like which song from the new album or songs from the new album they could imagine us doing live. And once we do get back on the road, it will give the album a second life. Right. It'll feel new all over again in certain ways.
Well, we've been talking with Tom Brislin, who is the keyboard player in Kansas and who has just released a fantastic new record, The Absence of Presence. I can't say enough good things about it. I encourage you, if you're a fan of the band, if you're a fan of progressive rock in general, it's definitely something to check out. It's available everywhere. You guys have some great physical packages online as well as all streaming stuff. So whatever format you're looking for, the record is available. And Tom, thank you so much for taking some time to talk about it today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And look forward to catching you guys on the road when things clear up a bit and hearing this music played live.
We're really looking forward to it too.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
My pleasure.
Bye.